بكم جميعا في النسخة الخامسة عشر من
Welcome
مقهى
to this
المعرفة
15th edition
Knowledge
of
Café سمينة
the
Knowledge
Samena
Café.
Knowledge
وبرحب
Cafe.
بحضراتكم
I would
جميعا.
like to
اليوم
welcome
عندنا
you all
موضوع
today.
غاية في
We have
الأهمية
a very important
واحتفال
topic, and this is kind of a
باستكمال
celebration
الخطة
of the
القطاعية
completion of
للتعليم في
the
دولة
sectoral
اليمن.
plan for education in
وقبل
Yemen.
ما نبدأ
This
الإحنا
is a very important
زي ما
and
قلت
special
لحضراتكم
day,
إنه في
as
إنجاز
I've
كبير
told
جدا
you
حصل
before,
في
because
دولة
there's a
اليمن.
major achievement that had taken place
والحقيقة إحنا
in the state of Yemen. And
بنرغب في إن كل
in
المنطقة
fact, we
وكل
would like
العالم
for the whole region and for the
يحتفل
whole
معنا بهذا
world to
الإنجاز
celebrate this
ويعرف
achievement
عنه ويعرف عن
and to know about it and
التعليم
about
في
the
اليمن
achievements in the education
الغالي على
sector
قلوبنا
in
جميعا.
the state of Yemen, which is
والحقيقة
very dear to our hearts.
يعني
And in
أقدم
fact,
لحضراتكم
I'd like to present
الفريق
to you
المسؤول
the team that is
عن
responsible. Just waiting for some
الحقيقة
technical issues to be solved.
اليوم
Okay,
هنتكلم
so
عن
as a matter of
خطة
fact,
التعليم
today we're going to
القطاعية
talk about
2024
the
2030
sectoral
في اليمن.
education plan
ومعانا
in
اليوم الدكتور
Yemen
عصام
2024-2030. We have Dr.
والأستاذ
Assam
ياسر علي
Al-Subahi and
والدكتور عبد
Mr. Yasser
الباقي
Ali and
سعيد عبد
Dr.
الخالق
Abdul Baqi, Said Abdul
والدكتور
Khaliq,
عارف
and Dr.
القطيبي
Arif Al-Qutaybi,
ومنسق
and also
الجلسة
the
اليوم
coordinator of the
والمحاور
session today, and
لبقة جدا
who is
وهي
a
الأستاذة
moderator.
نسرين نجيب.
Also,
الأستاذة
she's
نسرين
Mrs.
نجيب
Nasreen
هي
Naguib,
المنسق
who
الوطني
is the national
لدولة
coordinator
اليمن
for the state of
لمشروع كيكس
Yemen
إيماب
for the KIX
مركز كيكس
EMAP,
إيماب هاب.
for the
وأنا
center of KIX
هترك
EMAP
لها
Hub, and I
دلوقتي
will leave
المساحة
the floor to
لإدارة
her
هذه
now
الجلسة.
just to
وطبعا
moderate
أنا
this
بأوصيكم
session,
الالتزام
and
بالوقت
just please make
لمحدد
sure we're on
العقود
time
عشان
for all the
مهم جدا
presentations,
ندي مساحة
because
كبيرة
it's very
جدا
important to
للحوار
give
والأسئلة
just
والمناقشات فيما
full
بعد.
space for the
أستاذة
dialogue and
نسرين
for the
اتفضلي.
conversations later on. Mrs.
أهلا وسهلا،
Nisreen, go
شكرا
ahead,
جزيلا
please.
أستاذ رشا.
Thank you so much,
وبالحاجة أهلا
Rasha.
وسهلا بكم جميعا في هذه
First,
اللقاء من
welcome to all of
قناة
you
كيكس
in this encounter in the
لمناقشة
Samena.
وتبادل خبرات حول
So we are
قضايا
gathered here
تهمها
today to
تطوير
exchange
التعليم في اليمن.
expertise regarding the development of
يسعدنا
education
حضوركم
in
الكريم
Yemen. We're happy
ومشاركتكم
to
الفاعلة
have you
لهذه
here,
الدول
and
الأعضاء.
we're happy that
نلتقي هنا ونتعلم
you're
بعض
fully
من بعض
participating
العروض
with us. So
المهمة
we are here to listen to
تسلط
very
الضوء
important
على جهود
presentations
وزارة التربية
highlighting
والتعليم
the efforts
اليمنية
of the Ministry
وشركائها
of
في بناء نظام تعليمي
Education and how it is
شمولة
working on
وجودة واستدامة.
constructing a
هذه
more
الجلسة
comprehensive
ستستعرض خبرات أربع محاور
qualitative
رئيسية تمثل الخطة
system.
الأساسية
In fact,
لمسار تطوير التعليم، وهي
we're going to talk
خطة
about very
قطاع
important
التعليم في
pillars.
اليمن
First, the education
2024
sector plan in Yemen
والتي
2024-2030
ترسم ملامح الرؤية
that
المستقبلية للتعليم
would
يقدمها الدكتور عصام
draw the
الصبيحي.
vision for education
ثم
by Mr.
سننتقل
Usama
بعدها
Subehi.
إلى
Then
عرض آخر
we
وهو
shall
نظام
move to
إدارة
another
المنهج التربوي
presentation,
إيكس،
which is
والتجربة العلمية والمحورية للتخطيط
that is
المبني
a
على
very
الأدلة.
important tool
سيقدمها
based
معنا
on
الأستاذ
evidence.
ياسر.
And we have Mr. Yasser who will
طبعا
be
الأستاذ
presenting the
ياسر هو
ESP
مدير عام
for
الإحصاء
us.
والتخطيط،
He is the Director General
وفي
of
نفس الوقت
Statistics
هو
and
رئيس
Planning,
لجنة
and at the same time,
رجلة
he is the
الإنجليز.
head of the
وأعتذر
MS
ما
committee.
أعرفش
And
الدكتور عصام هو
I
أساسا
haven't
مختص
introduced
في
Dr. Isam.
في
He is specialized
المناهج وفي
in
نفس الوقت هو
curricula, and at the same time,
يعني عضو الفريق التخطيط
the member
الوزاري
for
في
the
خطة التعليم
ministerial
لليمن
planning team for the
24-30.
education plan in Yemen
بعدها في الجلسة
2024-2030.
الثالثة
Then in the
سننتقل إلى
third session, we shall
مركز
be
البحوث
moving
والتطوير
to the
التربوي
Center of Research
ودوره في
and
إعادة إشارة
Educational
التأثير المستمر.
Development and its role
سيقدمها
in
معنا
continuous
الدكتور عبد الباقي
innovation. And we
وهو
have
رئيس
Dr.
شعبة
Abdul Baqi,
الإحصاء
head
ومعالجة
of the
البيانات
section
في
of
المركز.
statistics and data
سننتقل بعدها
management in the center.
وختاما
Then we'll
الختام
move as a conclusion
سيكون مع الدكتور عارف
with
القطيبي،
Dr. Arif
وهو
Al-Qutaibi,
مدير عام التعليم التعويضي.
Director General of Competitive
يعني
Education,
بمعنى
and
أولى أو أوضح هو كمان نائب
more
رئيس
clearly, he is
النهضة الأمية
the vice
المسبح
chair
التعليمية،
of
ورئيس كمان المدير عام التعليم التعويضي.
literacy
طبعا
department
التعليم التعويضي هو أحد
and
المسارات
the
الحيوية لمنظومة
compensatory
التعليم
education,
الجامعي
which is
دون
one of the
استثناء.
most important, vital
فنتمنى تكون هذه الجلسة مثمرة وغنية بالحوار
aspect to
والتفاعل
ensure
ولتسهم
education
العروض
for all.
شريكنا
And
بفهم
hopefully this session
المشكلة
is going to be active and it's
لواقع
going to
وتوجهات
deepen
التعليم في
our
اليمن.
common understanding
شكرا.
of education in Yemen. Thank you.
لو هنعمل بقى شير للبرزنتيشن
Let us share the
أي عرض أبدأ
presentation.
بيه.
Which one shall I start with?
نعمل مشاركة هنا لأول عرض.
Can I share with you
إذا
this first
ما مشكلة.
presentation, please?
دكتور عصام ولا مين؟
Is it
دكتور
Dr.
عصام.
Isam or who?
أنا عندي
Yes, Dr.
البرزنتيشن
Isam.
خليني
Yes, I
أفتح
have his presentation. Let me start it myself.
تمام واضحة؟
Let me start to share. Is it clear for you? Yes.
نعم أهلا وسهلا.
Yes,
أهلا
welcome.
أهلا
Welcome.
وسهلا فيك دكتور رشا، أهلا وسهلا،
اهلا
حياكم الله
اهلا
جميعا.
Welcome, Dr. Rasha.
اهلا بيك. شكرا جزيلا دكتور عصام
Thank you
على
so much, Dr.
يعني
Isam,
العرض بتاعك
for your
والساحة لك.
presentation,
اتفضل.
and the floor is yours.
حياك. بسم الله.
Hello, everyone.
حقيقة نحن في وزارة التربية والتعليم
In the Ministry of
سنضعكم إن
Education,
شاء الله تعالى عن وضع التعليم في اليمن بشكل
we
عام
shall give you an
وخصوصا
overview of the
وموجزة.
situation of
نتحدث
education in
أيضا
Yemen.
إن شاء الله تعالى سنتكلم عن موضوع الخطط
And
الطاعية،
we will be talking about
ولكن
the
قبلها لازم
sector
أن
plans,
نبدأ
but before that,
بأمور
let us start
مهمة وهي
with some important issues,
مثل النطاق الجغرافي للجمهورية اليمنية حتى
such
يكون
as the
الجميع
geographical
في صورة واضحة.
scope of the
الجمهورية اليمنية
Yemenite
طبعا
Republic. In
مساحتها
fact, the Republic of
555,000
Yemen
كيلومتر مربع.
is of
المحافظات التي فيها
55,000 square meterage with
22 محافظة
22 provinces.
بكل محافظة طبعا مكتب تربية وتعليم.
And also we have
عدد
an office
الكليات في
of
كل
education in every
المحافظات
office, as well as
333 مديرية.
directorates,
عدد
333
المدارس المحققة
directorates, the
الشرعية
number of schools,
5,745 مدرسة بحسب نظام الAMS.
5,745 schools
نطاق
based on the
الحكومة
MS
الشرعية
system,
في كل
also
محافظة
the
بشمل
legitimate
محافظة
government
كاملة،
scope in the
وممرات
7
سيطرة
provinces,
الحوثية
and also
والإنقلابيين بصنعاء
the
وسائر
regions
محافظات،
under the
وست
control of the
محافظات
Houthis are 7
مشتركة
provinces, and we have 6
بينهما.
common provinces between the two.
الإطار الشريحة الثانية.
Slide number 2.
هناك إطار تشريعي
There is
وقانوني
a
للتعليم.
legislative and legal
هذا
framework
الإطار
for the education, and
هو
this
يقوم على
framework
قانون
is
العام
based on
للتربية
the General Law
45
of
لسنة
Education number 45
92
for the year
ميلادية. طبعا هذا الإطار
1992.
حدد فيه
And of
أسس
course,
ومبادئ
this
التعليم
framework has
ونظم العلاقة بين
been
مختلف
determined
مراحله.
in the principles of education and
حدد أيضا مسؤولية
at all
الدولة في
stages, and it also
التوفير
determined the
والتعليم
responsibility
لجميع
of the
أبناء
state
الشعب.
to provide
طبعا
education for
حق
all
من
of
الحقوق
the
الإنسانية،
population, and
وهذا
this is one
يعتبر
of the
مشاريع
fundamental
تنموية
human
للبلد.
rights, and this is a very important
طبعا هناك قوانين
development,
أو لوائح
human investment
متعلقة
on the
بتطبيق
long run. There are
استكمال هذا
also
القانون
submissions related to the
وتوفير
completion of
الخدمة
this
التعليمية.
law and of the provision of the
بالنسبة
education
لنظام
services.
التعليم في
Now,
اليمن،
regarding the
طبعا
education
وزارات
system in
تشكل
Yemen,
هذا
of course,
النظام
the
وهي
ministry is
وزارة
supervising this
التربية
system. We have
والتعليم
the Ministry of
تشرف على التعليم
Education
العام،
that is supervising the general
ووزارة
education,
التعليم
and also
العالي
the
والتعليم
higher
الفني والتدريب
education
المهني. طبعا
and
تشرف
technical
على التعليم
education
الجامعي
and
والتدريب
professional
العالي
education,
وحق
of
التعليم
course,
الفني والمهني.
is supervised by the
مع
ministry
هاتين الوزارتين دمجت
of
مؤخرا بوزارة واحدة.
technical education, and these two ministries have
السلم
been
التعليمي
integrated into one
للتعليم
lately.
العام
Now,
في وزارة التربية
in the general
والتعليم
education and the
يتكون
Ministry of
من
Education,
3
we
مراحل.
have 3
المرحلة
stages.
الأولى
The
وهي
first
مرحلة رياض
stage
الأطفال
is
ومدتها سنتان،
the
وهي
nursery
مرحلة
of 2
غير
years, and
إلزامية.
this is a
ومرحلة التعليم
non-compulsory
الأساسي
stage.
ومدتها
And
9
also we have
سنوات،
primary
ومرحلة
education of
التعليم
10
الثانوي
years and
ومدتها 3
secondary education
سنوات.
of 3
طبعا في
years.
المرحلة التعليم الثانوي
Of course,
الطالب
in the
يكون بين
secondary
اختيارين.
education, the
اختيار
student would
عندما
have
يصل إلى
2
الصف
choices.
الثاني
When
ثانوي،
he gets
إما أن
to
يتجه
the
إلى القسم
second
الأدبي
secondary
أو إلى
class,
القسم
either
العلمي.
he goes to the literary field or to the
الشريحة اللي بعد
scientific
الشريحة اللي
field.
بعد
The slide after that, please. Next slide.
تسمعوني؟
Can you hear me?
أي نعم. اللي قبلها طبعا السياق التعليمي في الجمهورية اليمنية
So,
يعاني
educational
منذ
context
انقلاب
in Yemen, it has been
الانقلاب
suffering ever since
الانقلاب
the coup
الحوثي على
d'etat
السلطة
on the
الشرعية
legitimate authority by
في
the
عام
Houthis.
2014.
In fact, in 2014,
نهاية هذا العام طبعا هناك أوضاع
so
صعبة
end of
في
this
مختلف
year, there
مجالات
are
الحياة
difficult
منها أوضاع التعليم.
situations and
أدى
circumstances in
ذلك إلى
different
نزوح
fields,
أعداد كبيرة
especially
من
education. And this
الطلاب
has led to the
والمعلمين،
displacement of a
وتأثر
huge
كثير من
number of
المدارس
students and the
وانعدام
teachers,
الكتاب
and many
المدرسي
schools have been affected. No more
وتوقف
school
مرتبات
manuals,
أعداد
no more
كبيرة من
salaries
المعلمين
for a lot
والمعلمات،
of teachers, females and
وتلفت كمية
male
كبيرة من
teachers, and
التجهيزات
a huge
المدرسية،
quantity of school supplies
ناهيك عن دفع
has been
أعداد كبيرة
destroyed.
من
Not to
الأطفال إلى
mention
ترك
that
المدارس واستغلال الحاجتين من قبل
many
الإنقلابيين
children have been
والحاقهم
forced
بجبهات
out of
القتال.
school, forced to
الشريحة
drop
اللي
out
بعد
of the school, and some of them have been forced to join the front lines of the
طبعا
battles
وفقا
by
لمنظمة
the coup d'etat organizers.
الأمم
Based
المتحدة
on
واليونيسف إن
the
هناك قرابة
UNICEF,
2.2 مليون
there is around
يمني في
2
سن الدراسة
million
من أصل
Yemeni
7.3
children
ملايين لم
out
يلتحقوا
of
بالمدارس.
7.3
طبعا
million who have not been
وهناك
in school,
2200
and there
مدرسة
are
دمرت أو
2,200 schools that
لحقت
have been
بها أضرار
destroyed or
منذ
that have
الانقلاب على
been
السلطة
gravely damaged
الشرعية.
ever since the coup
كما
d'etat.
تم البسط على
And
عدد من
also
المدارس
many
وبعضها
schools
استخدم
have been
مراكز
controlled,
وقواعد
some
لميليشيا
of which have been
أو
used
لميليشيات
as
الحوثي
bases for the
الانقلابية.
militias of the coup d'etat of the
الشريحة اللي
Houthis.
بعدها
Next slide.
طبعا وهناك مدارس أخرى أيضا
There are other schools as
تم
well
استخدامها
that
مآوي
have been
للنازحين.
used as shelters
بسبب
for
هروبهم
the
من
displaced
مناطقهم
because of the war and because of
قرابة
the fact that they
2
have
مليون
fled their
نازح
regions. And so we're talking about 2
بحسب
million
بيان لليونسف
displaced based on the
عام
statement of
2020.
UNICEF in
هناك أطفال
2020.
أيضا تقل
There are
أعمارهم
children
أو بعض أعمارهم
between
من الفئة الثامنة خرجوا من المدارس
or
بسبب
under
تجنيدهم
8
في
that have
صفوف
been dropped out because they've been
الميليشيات
recruited in
الانقلابية.
the coup d'etat militias.
الشريحة اللي بعدها.
Next slide.
طبعا السياق التعليمي في
Of
اليمن
course, the
رغم هذا
educational
وذاك
context in
هذا اللي
Yemen,
حصل
well,
في مدى
despite
الأيام
what is
الحكومة
happening in
اليمنية
our
ممثلة
country,
بوزارة
the
التربية
Yemeni
والتعليم
government,
لم
represented
تقف
by the
أمام
Ministry
كل
of
هذه التحديات
Education,
عاجزة،
did not stand
بل عملت مع
still before all
الشركاء
of these
الدوليين
challenges, but rather
والمحليين
it worked with the
ومنظمات
international,
المجتمع
local
المدني
partners, and the civil
بوضع
society organizations
خطة
by setting
التعليم
the
الانتقالية.
transition education
طبعا هذه
plan.
الخطة هي
Of course,
خطة
this
قصيرة
plan
المدى
is a
عام
short-term plan
2019
from
إلى
2019 to
2022.
2022,
هذه كانت
and this was
بمثابة
a kind
خطة
of
طوارئ
an emergency
أبقت
plan
التعليم مستمرا
that
ووضعت
had
المدارس مفتوحة الأبواب. هذا
ensured the
الجهد أيضا
continuity of
أثمر
education and
واستمر
kept the schools open. And these
في
efforts
التعاون بين الحكومة الممثلة
have
بوزارة
been
التربية وبين
translated in
الشركاء
the
الدوليين
collaboration between the Ministry
والمحليين
of Education and international and
استمر
local
القطاع
partners. And
على
this
الخروج
has
بالبلاد فيما
led
يخص
to
التعليم من حالة
saving
الطوارئ
the education plan
إلى
and moving
حالة
it from the emergency
التعافي،
situation to the
وذلك
recovery situation. And
بإعداد
this was
خطة
through
قطاع التعليم
preparing a
24
plan for the education
30
sector, which is
والتي انتهت وزارة التربية من
2024-2030. And the
إعدادها
Ministry of
وعملت على
Education has
إشهارها
finalized this
في
plan, and
تاريخ
it has worked on publishing it
27
in
مايو
or on the 27th of
2025
May
وهي إلى الآن
2025.
في
And
مرحلة
up until now,
رصد الموارد
this
والتسويق
plan
لها
is still
مع
allocating its
المنظمات.
resources and in the face of marketing with the
هذا
organizations.
طبعا الكلام إجمالا عن موضوع السياق
So
التعليمي فيما
this is regarding the
حتى يكون
educational context, just for the things to be
في جلسة
clearer and
الجميع على
so
معرفة
that
بما
everyone
يصير
would
في
know what is
وضع التعليم في
happening
اليمن.
really when it comes to education in
طبعا
Yemen.
حبينا أن نطلعكم عن
So we
موضوع
wanted to
المناهج
let you know
الدراسية
about the education curricula
في الجمهورية اليمنية
in the Yemeni Republic
سابقا في الشطر الشمالي وسابقا في الشطر الجنوبي إلى أن وصلت
before
إلى
in the north
الجمهورية
and in the
اليمنية
south until
وما
it got
الذي
to
حصل
the
إلى أن
Central
وصلنا
Republic
للانقلاب
until we got
الحوثي.
to the
مرت
Houthi
طبعا
coup
المراحل
d'etat.
الدراسية
Of course,
أو
we've
المناهج
had
الدراسية
different
بمراحل عدة.
stages
أولا
of
بدأت هذه المرحلة
education and
بمراحل
education curricula. So
وبمناهج
first, it
مستعارة
all started
نقلت
with
كما هي من
borrowed
دول
curricula
عربية.
that have been copied as is from Arab states.
ثانيا تم تنقيحها
Second,
وتجديبها ودمجها.
these curricula have been revised and then
المرحلة الثالثة
integrated.
أن
And the
تأليف
third
مناهج
stage is
جديدة
that
أو
the new
دراسية جديدة.
curricula have been invented and
يمكن استعراض هذه
created.
العملية من خلال
And
تصنيف
so
هذه
this process is based on
ست
certain
مراحل. تصنيف هذه
classification
العمليات إلى 6 مراحل
of this process into
زمنية.
6 stages.
والمرحلة الأولى
The
التي
first
هي
one
مرحلة
is
ما قبل
in
عام
fact
90.
the
طبعا هذا ما قبل عام 90 كان هناك
pre-90s stage.
جمهورية
So before
العربية اليمنية
1990,
في الشمال
we've had
سابقا
the Yemeni Republic in the
والجمهورية
north
اليمن
previously,
الديمقراطية
and
الشعبية في
the
الجنوب
Democratic Popular
سابقا.
Republic of Yemen, it was in the south
طبعا المناهج اللي
previously.
كانت في
And of
الجمهورية
course,
العربية
the
اليمنية في
curricula that
الشمال
were
سابقا
in
كانت مناهج
the
مصرية
Yemeni Republic in the north
استعارتها
were
بحكم
Egyptian curricula that have
التواجد
been
المصري بعد
borrowed
ثورة
because of
26
the presence
سبتمبر
of Egypt to
في
support
62.
the opportunities
طبعا
of
هناك
the
محاولات طبعا
26th of September
لنقلت هذه
1926.
المناهج بعد
And of
عام
course,
69
there were
إلا أن
attempts
الأمر
to
اقتصر
give the
على
Yemeni character
التغيير
after
أضيفت الكتب
1969. However,
بين
it was all
مظلة
limited
المحتوى كما
just
هو يحمل
to
الطابع
the covers of
المصري.
the book. So, whereas the
أما
content
بالنسبة
was still an
لجنوب
Egyptian
اليمن
content. Now,
فيما
regarding
كان ما يسمى
southern
بالجمهورية الديمقراطية
Yemen,
الشعبية
what
كانت
was called
المناهج
the
هناك
Democratic Popular
المناهج
Republic of
السودانية هي
Yemen,
المستخدمة
we've
في
had
الجمهورية.
the Sudanese curricula that were used.
إلى عام 67
Until
بالنسبة للمرحلتين الابتدائية
1967,
والمتوسطة
these were
والمناهج
for the
الوطنية في المرحلة
primary
الثانوية
and
باستثناء بعض
secondary
المواد اللي هي
stages,
التاريخ واللغة
except
العربية.
for history and
طبعا
Arab language
في ثانويات بلقيس
courses.
اختلف الأمر نوعا ما
In the Balkis
حيث كانت تدرس
schools, it
حسب
was a bit
المناهج
different because
العراقية.
there was the Iraqi curricula that
وفي
were being
فترة ما بعد
taught.
الاستقلال
And
وحتى انعقاد
after the
المؤتمر الثقافي
independence and
الأول عام
until
75
the first
تم
education
الأخذ
conference in
بالمناهج المصرية
1975, the
والعربية.
Egyptian curricula and
طبعا
Iraqi
باستثناء
curricula
محافظة
were
حضرموت
adopted,
استمر
except
في
for the
تدريس المناهج
Hadramaut
السودانية.
province, whereby the Sudanese
وبعدين عقد
curricula
المؤتمر
continued to be taught. And
التربوي
after
الأول تم
the first
إعداد مناهج
educational
بدعم
conference,
وخبرات
there
ألمانية
were
وسوفيتية
curricula with
حتى عام
expertise from
93
Britain until
تقريبا.
1993. approximately. The second stage was in 1990 till 1994, and there was a new change, which was the integrated unity. And so both states were unified into one, which is the Republic of Yemen. And we had now a new stage of education, and we can summarize the main achievements. Keeping the books that were in 1990 and 1991, just rectifying these books through well-defining the concepts and removing the concepts against unity, and also issuing circulars regarding the abolishment of everything related to the previously known two states. And so the content of the curricula was still the same, except for the changes as the square meterage, the borders, and the number of populations in 1991, 1992. Of course, in 1992, there was the General Law of Education that we have already listed. It was law number 45. It was published as a reference, and it was a seminar. There was a seminar. Now, in 1992, 1993, some of the books were unified, such as the Quran, the Islamic education, the Arabic language books, etc. Now, of course, there was a seminar organized by the Center of Research and the Project of Education. I think that my colleague Abdul Baki can talk about that. Now, the third stage from 1994 to 1996. Of course, there was a new political phase after the war of 1994, whereby the educational ladder and the curriculum and the educational plan were adopted, and they were in the north. And this has created a set of difficulties, including the fact that the teachers in the southern provinces had some difficulties in teaching some of these courses. Also, the difficulty for some students to accept these courses because of a lack of knowledge, and also there was a difficulty in mainstreaming the curricula of these three courses, such as reading, math, and science. Of course, the third class or grade 3, in fact, it wasn't piloted. Now, regarding the fourth stage, of course, there have been a preparation of the school manuals and documents, analysis of all the school books, also preparing some curricula for the grades 1 to 6, and preparing school manuals, also mainstreaming school manuals for the grades 1 to 6. And this was a pilot project at the beginning of 2000 and 2001. And also, so all of the manuals were taught except for the English language, and also there was a preparation of some of the Yemeni teachers in terms of curricula, and also we've had some secondary school courses that have been well prepared. There were a lot of books with different parts, volume 1, volume 2 for the literary and for the scientific fields. So also there has been school manuals for grade 10, grade 12. Now, regarding the fifth stage, so we can summarize when it comes to the curricula by saying the following. The school manuals were in fact revised based on different reports. Also, there has been a comprehensive review of the educational policy, and this was in 2013. Also preparing curricular document for all the school courses based on standards, establishing committees to develop a curricula of grades, and this has ended with the creation of a book for reading for grades 1 and 2 with the support of the project CIB. Also preparing documents based on standards of the mathematics, and this was called the mathematics project by GIZ, including the document of the general framework and the guide for the authors. Also creating some documents for the science course from grades 1 to 4, and creating some standards for the nursery teachers, and Mr. Abdul Baki is going to talk about that. Now, the sixth phase or stage. It is the most dangerous phase in education or at the level of education in Yemen. And this stage is the post-war stage after 2014. And this stage is kind of a bomb, if I may say so, for the education in Yemen. Why? Because during that stage, the stage of intervention in the content of the school manuals through creating amendments while ignoring the decision of the ministry, which stated that these books should be adopted until the year 2014. And so these interventions were based on sectarian considerations. And after having examined the books that have been distributed in Sinai, we have found that these sectarian intervention books were under 8 titles. And this is why the Minister of Education has issued a ministerial decision to stop these books and to stop distributing them in the schools. And so then it was said at some point that there was an American book being marketed, and so it was stopped, and they created new curricula that would that created a sectarian conflict, and they were imposed on the children in a legal way. Now, the legitimate authority has committed to the established curricula before the coup d'etat, and the legitimate authority is aiming at developing the curricula based on scientific standards and national standards. The seventh stage, mainly what had happened is to integrate the school manuals, and I'm talking here about the 45 books, 42 or 32 books in the primary education and 13 books in the secondary education. Of course, there was a revision of the different reading material from grades 1 to 3, and one of the supervisors was Dr. Arif Al-Qutaibi, especially page number 3. And this book, in fact, was about the skills of the 21st century. This has been included into that book because it was published right after 2022. Also, there have been mathematics courses from grades 1 to 3 that have been developed, and in those books, in fact, also the 21st century skills have been taken into consideration. And currently, in 2025, the comprehensive skills curricula have been created for the kindergarten, and until now, work is underway to create books and curricula. Of course, the other slides have been created first, and I think that Mr. Yasser is going to talk about the rates and is going to mention these issues, because I think that this issue is very important, as well as the development and the economy. We shall be talking about these issues briefly, just for the sake of time, and so that you would be able just to have an overview of these issues. And now, just to be brief, we will move to the strategies. Yes, you can turn up the pages. Yes, this one, please. The strategies that have been implemented by the ministry in order to improve the quality of education. We have the National Strategy for the Development of Basic Education 2003 to 2015. Also, the National Strategy for the General Secondary Education 2006 to 2015. Also, the National Strategy for the Early Childhood from 2010 to 2015. And also, we have the National Strategy for the literacy and for education of the elderly from 1998 to 2020. Now,
التي
regarding
عكفت
the
وزارة
plans
التربية على
that the Ministry
إعدادها
of
وتنفيذها
Education
مع
have
الشركاء بعد
prepared
الحرب
and implemented with the
الخطة
partners after
الانتقالية
the
التي
war, we have
ذكرناها
the
آنفا
transitional plan that we have
من
already
2019
stated in
أو حتى عام
2019
2022
and until the year
وخطة قطاع التعليم
2022, and
وهي خطر
the education
التعافي
sector plan,
من
which is
عام
the recovery plan from
2024 وحتى عام
2024
2030
until 2030.
وتفصيلا
And then
لهذه الخطتين
also, just
التي
to detail these two plans
قامت وزارة التربية
that
والتعليم
the
بعد
Ministry of
الحرب على
Education
إعدادها
after war
وخطة
have
الانتقال لها
prepared. Also, we
خطة
have the
طوارئ من عام
transition
19
plan,
ل
which is
22
the
تكونت من 4 أولويات كبرى
emergency plan
يندرج
with
تحتها
4 main
برامج وتتضمن
priorities, under
البرامج
which we
أنشطة
have
رئيسية
programs including main
وتتفرع الأنشطة
activities,
الرئيسية
and the main
للأنشطة
activities are divided
إلى
into
أنشطة فرعية
sub-activities.
طبعا هذه الأولوية الأولى وهي وصول
This is
آمن
the
ومناسب
first priority,
للتعليم
which is a safe
وهذه من
access
ضمن
to
الأمور
education,
التي
and this is one of the issues
نتحدث
that
عنها
we
وهي
can talk
موضوع التنمية
about, and this
المستدامة
is the issue
وصلة
of
التلميذ
sustainable
ويكون
development,
هناك وصول
and for
آمن ومنصف
the
وشامل
student to
لجميع
have a safe
التلاميذ.
access
تهدف هذه
and global
الأولوية من
access.
8
And
برامج
this
وهذه البرامج
priority includes 8
أمامكم
programs, and you can
الأداعي
see those
لقراءتها
programs. You are not
ولكن
forced to read them
أمامكم
all,
تشاهدونها
but you can
فهي
find them here in front of
تعزيز
you,
المشاركة
and it
والأمن.
is
نأتي إلى
enhancing
الشريحة
the
اللي بعدها وهي
participation.
الأولوية
Next
الثانية
slide, the second
الشريحة اللي
priority.
بعدها وهي تحسين التعليم والتعلم. طبعا تألفت أيضا هذه
Improving
الأولوية
the education
عن
and learning,
11
and this priority
برنامج
has been made of 11
منها
programs,
توفير تدريب
including
المعلمين
providing for the
وتحسين
training of
الإشراف وضمان الزيارات
educators,
وطباعة الكتب
improving the
ودمج
supervision,
الكتب
also
واستكمال
integrating the books, and
هذه
also
طبعا معظمها تم
here
عملها.
most of these strategies
إلى
have been adopted.
الآن إلى الأولوية الثالثة وهي إعادة
We
تأهيل
move
البنية اللي
now
بعدها إعادة تأهيل البنية
to
التحتية
the
التربوية وتوفير
rehabilitation
التجهيزات.
of the education
طبعا هذه
infrastructure and the equipment
الأولوية
and
تألفت
supplies.
من
Also, this
3
priority
برامج
is made of 3 programs.
برامج وهي إعادة تأهيل المدارس
It's
والمرافق
about the
المتضررة
rehabilitation of schools
جزئيا
and the damaged
وتنفيذ الصيانة
infrastructure
البسيطة
partially,
وإنشاء
and
أصول
also
فلكية
having
مؤقتة
the
شبه دائمة.
simple
توفير
maintenance,
الأسلحة المدرسية
also
والمعدات
providing the
واللوازم.
school
توفير
supplies,
المرافق المدرسية
and
والمواد
providing the school
التعليمية.
and the educational
الأولوية
material.
الرابعة
Now, the
وهي
fourth
الأخيرة الشريحة
priority,
اللي
which is
بعدها
the last
تعزيز القدرات
one,
المؤسسية.
enhancing the
وتألفت
institutional
الأولوية
capacities,
الرابعة من
and
5 برامج
this fourth priority is made of
رئيسية.
5 main programs.
هذه البرامج وهي الحفاظ على
And
النظام
these programs
التعليمي،
are, for
تعزيز
example,
نظام
maintaining
الامتحانات،
the education system,
توفير
improving
بناء
the
قدرات
exam
الإدارات
system, also building the capacities of the
التعليم مع
administrations,
التركيز على إدارة التعليم في
while
الطوارئ،
focusing on
تعزيز نظام
emergency
إدارة المعلومات
education,
التربوية
enhancing
وأهميتها والتقديم،
the
وهذا
educational
نظام إدارة
material
المعلومات التربوية سيتحدث عنه
management.
الأستاذ
And
ياسر.
Mr. Yasser is going to
تعزيز
talk
آلية
about that,
التنسيق بين السلطات
enhancing
الحكومية
the
والشركاء
coordination mechanism between the
وتطوير
government
خطة
authorities and the
قطاعية
partners, and
مدتها
developing a
5
sectoral
سنوات، وهذا
plan
طبعا
of
كان في
5
الخطة
years, and this
الانتقالية.
was in
نأتي
the
إلى خطط
transition
قطاع
plan. Now
التعليم
we move to the
التي
educational
استمرت
sector
أو
plans that have
أخرجت أو أنجبت من خطط التعليم الانتقالية، وهي قطاع التعليم
emerged from the
24/3.
transitional plan.
هذه
In
الخطة
fact, it's
تأتي
the
بمثابة
education plan
خطة تعافي.
2024 to
طبعا
2030.
تكونت
In
هذه
fact,
الخطة من 5
this was
أولويات
a
كبرى
recovery plan, and it was
يندرج
made of
تحت كل
5 main
أولوية مكونات
priorities. Under each
رئيسية،
priority, we
وتحت
have
كل
main
مكون
components, and under
رئيسي
every
ومكون فرعي،
component, we have a
ومنهم أنشطة
sub-component,
رئيسية
and we
وتتفرع
have
أنشطة
main
رئيسية
activities,
إلى
and then
أنشطة فرعية.
sub-activities from these main
الأولوية
activities.
الأولى وهي
The first
الوصول للتعليم
priority
الأساسي
was
والثانوي
to have
والمشاركة
access
والإنصاف
to the
فيه.
primary education, secondary
طبعا
education,
تضمنت هذه
and of
الأولوية
course, this priority
مكونين
included the
رئيسيين.
2 main
المكون الأول
components. So the first
وهو تحسين
one
البنية
is
التحتية في
to
المدارس.
improve the infrastructure
يندرج
in
تحت
the
هذا المكون
schools, and
عدة
under
أنشطة،
this component we have different
أو هذه
activities,
الأنشطة هي
and
7
these activities
أنشطة. النشاط
are
الأول تفعيل
7. The first
معايير
one
البناء
is
المدرسي
to
الوطنية.
activate the standards
بناء
of
الثاني
the
بناء مدارس جديدة.
national school
الثالث بناء وإضافة
construction.
فصول
Second,
في صفوف
building a new
المدارس
houses.
غير
Third,
المكتملة والمكتظة.
adding up new
4
classes
إعادة
in
تأهيل
the
المدارس
not
الأساسية
overcrowded
والثانوية.
schools. Fourth,
5 تحسين
rehabilitation
المدارس
of the
التجهيزات
primary and
الرمزية
secondary schools.
والصرف
5,
المياه والصرف
also
الصحي والنظافة الصحية.
improving the
6
schools while
تنظيم عدد
providing
السلامات في
them
المدارس.
with the water utilities,
ووضع خارطة
sanitation,
طريق
hygiene.
لتقنين
6,
جدوى
also
إلغاء
giving
تدريب النظام
or
الدوامي.
providing for full safety
المكون
in
الثالث
the
هو تحسين
schools. And
الطابع
also
التعليمي الأساسي
the
والثانوي.
7th one is
طبعا
to
هذا المكون تم معالجته من خلال مكونين
abolish
رئيسيين.
the
المكون الأول هو خفض
two
تكاليف التعليم على الأسر،
timing
وفيه
systems
نشاطين
inside of the
رئيسيين.
schools.
النشاط الأول مواصلة تغطية التغذية المدرسية الحالية وتوسيع نطاقها.
So in fact, we have two main components that we can talk about here. The second component is specifically raising awareness for the households, and we have here 6 main activities.
وتدريبهم توظيف أخصائيين اجتماعيين تنظيم حملات
Employing
توعية
social
مراجعة
assistants,
نظام الإنذار المبكر الحالي
also
وتجديد
organizing
تحسينه
awareness
دراسة
campaigns,
أسباب تسرب الفتيات
reviewing the
والزواج
early
القاصرة. طبعا
warning
نأتي
systems,
إلى الشريحة اللي بعدها
stopping the
الأولوية
marriage
الثالثة
of
اللي قبلها.
small
الأولوية الثانية
children.
وهي جودة التعليم الأساسي
We have another
والثانوي.
priority, which is the
وفي هذه
quality of
الأولوية 4
primary and
مكونات
secondary
رئيسية.
education. We have here 4 main
المكون الأول هو
components. The
المناهج
first
التعليمية
component
والكتب
is
المدرسية
about
ومواد
the
التعلم.
educational curricula
والثاني تقييم
and the school
الاختبارات.
material, and also
والثالث
we have
تدريب
the
المعلمين
exams, the
والإشراف
tests, and
عليهم.
also we have
وفي هذا
the training of
المكونان
educators and the
رئيسية فرعية.
teachers. And here we have
الأول
2
تدريب المعلمين
subcomponents. The first one is
والثاني
training
الإشراف
the teachers, and
التربوي.
the second one
طبعا
is
تدريب
the
المعلمين هي
education
4 أنشطة
supervision.
رئيسية.
Here we have
منها
4
تقييم
main
الاحتياجات، تفعيل
activities. For
المعاهد،
example,
تدريب المعلمين، إنتاج برامج تدريبية باستخدام القناة.
providing for
الإشراف التربوي فيه 4
educational
أنشطة رئيسية
material,
كمان
and
أيضا،
also in the
وهي
education
مراجعة
supervision we
الإطارات
have 4 main
المراجعية والمرشدين،
activities:
استمرار
reviewing
السياسات
the
الاشرافية، تدريب
reference
المهنة،
framework,
مسؤولية
also
تعيين
organizing
تحسين المرصد
visits,
التعليمي.
improving the
المكون الرابع هو
educational
البيئة التعليمية
practices.
وفيه
The
7
fourth
أنشطة،
component is about the educational environment with
منه
7
توفير
activities:
المكتبات، المختبرات،
having
الرسومات،
libraries,
خدمات صحية،
laboratories,
تكريم
providing
معلمين ومعلمات
health care
الطلبة، تفعيل
services,
الأنشطة الصفية
activating the
واللامنهجية،
classroom
دمج
activities, the extracurricular
التكنولوجيا في
activities,
الفصول.
also including the
الشريحة اللي بعدها
technology. Next
المكون
slide.
الأولوية الثالثة وهي
The
الطفولة المبكرة،
third priority
وفيها
is
مكونان
or
رئيسيان.
having
هما
2
المكون
main
الرئيسي الأول
components.
وصول
We have
الإنصاف،
the first main component is the access,
ويتضمن مكونين فرعيين منه
and we
تحسين
have
البنية
2
التحتية
subcomponents:
كرياض الأطفال
improving
في 6
the
أنشطة، منها
infrastructure
إعادة
with 6 main
تأهيل صفوف رياض
activities,
الأطفال
such
في
as
المدينة، بناء
rehabilitation
صفوف
of
وبناء مدارس
the
جديدة،
kindergarten classes and
توفير
building a
معدات
new
وأجهزة
schools, and
دراسة
also providing
وتلميذ
for the schools and the
والرياض
supplies,
في
and
حكومة
also
اليمن،
having feasibility
وتشجيع من قبل وزارة
studies.
تقديم
And
الخدمات
there was an
لتسجيل
encouragement by the ministry
المحرومين
for the service
وذوي
providers
الإعاقة.
in order to register the deprived
المكون
and
الرئيسي
the
الأول
people with
هو الوصول
disabilities.
والإنصاف.
The first main
طبعا
component
في
is the
موضوع
access
الطفولة
and
المبكرة،
equity, of course, when it comes to early childhood.
هنا في خلال هذا يعني هذا يتضمن تعزيز الطلب على رياض
This
الأطفال
includes
في المجتمعات المحلية ويتضمن
enhancing,
نشاطين: إجراء
in
تقييم
fact, the
الاحتياجات
demand
الفردية
on
لرياض الأطفال، وإجراء حملات
kindergarten
توعوية،
in the local communities, and having
knowledge
awareness
cafés
campaigns,
ووسائل
and also
التواصل
evaluating the
المتوفرة
nutrition
والمتاحة.
needs of the
المكون الرئيسي
children.
الثاني
The
وهو
second main
الجودة،
component is the
ويتضمن 4
quality in a
مكونات مع رياض
kindergarten with
الأطفال.
4 main components.
المكونات
In
الرئيسية
kindergarten, we have
هذه المكونات
subcomponents, and
العامة
these
لرياض الأطفال:
subcomponents
توظيف
is
مربيات
related first to
ومساعدات
the
مربيات،
educators,
توفير التدريب لهن
assistant
وضع لجنة
educators,
سلوك
providing them with
العاملين.
training and providing a
أيضا
code of
تضمن
conduct
المناهج
for
وتدريب
the
التعليم
workers.
والتعلم،
And also we have
وفيه
curricula
التعريف
for
منهج وطني.
education, and
والحمد لله
also the creation
أشرنا
of
إلى
national
قبل
curricula.
قليل
And of course,
أنه
we
تم
have already
تعليم
talked about the fact
منهاج
that
متكامل
there was
الخبرات
a
لمراحل في
full
مجالات رياض الأطفال.
curricula
أيضا
that was
تجهيز
created for the
التعلم
kindergarten, and also preparing for
وتعزيز النشاط،
an
وفيه
education
تحديد أدوار
environment,
الإشراف
and
الرئيسي
enhancing
وتفعيل
the
الزيارات
supervision and activating
لرياض
the
الأطفال.
visits for the
الأولوية الرابعة
kindergarten. The fourth
وهو
priority
الحوكمة والهيكل المؤسسي
is
للتعليم العام.
the governance
طبعا
and
المحور الرئيسي
institutional
الأولوية
structure.
الرابعة
Of
حول 5
course,
مكونات.
the fourth
المكون الأول وهو
priority
التخطيط والموازنة
is based on 4
ونظام إدارة
priorities. First
المعلومات
of all,
التربوية والمتابعة
planning
والتقييم
and
والتمويل،
budget,
ويتضمن 3 مكونات فرعية
follow-up,
شملت
funding,
18 نشاطا رئيسيا.
and we have
المكون
3
الثاني التنسيق
subcomponents with
والشراكات
18 main
والتواصل،
activities. The
ويتكون
second
من
component
فرعين
is
أو مكونين
coordination,
فرعيين
partnership, and
شملت
communication with
5
2
أنشطة
subcomponents,
رئيسية.
covering
المكون
5 main
الثالث
activities. The
إصلاحات
third
الموارد
component is
البشرية،
related to the
ويتضمن
human
3 مكونات
resources,
فرعية
including 3
شملت 8 أنشطة
subcomponents,
رئيسية.
including 8 main
المكون
activities.
الرابع
And the
الإدارة
fourth
والإشراف
component
التربوي،
is
ويتضمن
related to
مكونين
administration and
فرعيين
control with
شمل
2
أيضا 7 أنشطة رئيسية.
subcomponents with
والمكون
7 main
الخامس
activities. And the fifth
هو
component
تعظيم قدرة وزارة
is
التربية والتعليم على
enhancing the
التكيف مع
capacity of
التغير
the ministry
المناخي.
to adapt to the climate
وهذه
change.
الأيام طبعا
And of
قبل
course,
أيام حصل موضوع
days
المناخ،
ago,
وحصلت السيول
we've had the
وانهار
floodings,
بعض
and
البيوت،
some
وذهب
houses
السكان إلى
collapsed,
المدارس،
and the inhabitants went
وتوقف في بعض المدارس
to stay in schools,
التعليم.
and in some of the schools, education has stopped
واتصلت
fully.
بالمخاطر الطبيعية والمخاطر
And of
البيئية
course, there were
وهي
a
من
lot of
صنع
natural
الإنسان،
dangers
وفيها
and
أيضا 5
risks, man-made
أنشطة
disasters. And here
رئيسية.
we have 5 main
والأولوية
activities.
الخامسة
And we have the fifth
والأخيرة
priorities and the last
وهي
priority,
محو الأمية
which
والتعليم
is the
البديل،
literacy and
وهذا الذي
the
إن شاء الله
alternative
تعالى
education.
سيتحدث
And
عنه إذا
this is what
التعليم البديل.
Dr. Arif is
محور
going to
الأمية.
talk about in
لكن هذه
alternative
المبادرة
education
خطط
and
قطاعية
literacy,
تخطط
but
قطاع
this is
التعليم
included in the
2030
sectoral plan
وتتضمن أهداف
of
2025
2024 to
حول 3 مكونات
2030,
رئيسية.
and this
المكون
is
الأول
based
التطوير
on 5
المؤسسي
main
وفي 6
components. The
أنشطة
first
رئيسية
one is
منها
or includes the
تشريعات،
6 main
سياسات،
activities:
إجراء دراسات،
legislations,
تدريب
policies,
موظفين،
studies,
تنظيم بيانات،
training of
عرض
employees,
استراتيجية وطنية
data, also having
إلى
national
آخره.
strategies,
المكون الثاني هو
etc.
محور الأمية وتعليم الكبار
The
وتطوير
second
مهاراتهم.
component is the
وفي
literacy
6
and
أنشطة
the
رئيسية
education and development of
مثل
their
تحديث
skills with
المناهج،
6 main
توفير مواد
activities
تعليم
such as
وتعلم مع
curricula,
مراكز تدريب، توظيف ميسرين،
education material,
إعادة
training
التنسيق بين أصحاب
centers,
المصلحة، ورفع مستوى
facilitators,
الوعي.
enhancing the
المكون
coordination,
الثالث
raising
هو التعليم
awareness. The
البديل
third
وفيه
component is the alternative education with
11 نشاطا
11
نشاطا منها تحديث
activities,
مناهج، تطوير معوض
including
تعليم، توظيف
developing
معلمين، توفير سبل
curricula,
ذكية،
employing
توفير خدمات
teachers,
إرشادية،
providing
تطوير سياسات
instructions,
الحماية وإجراء دراسات، توفير
developing
مساحات
the
تعليمية
policies
آمنة.
of protection, providing safe education
وآخر شريحة
spaces.
إن
And the last slide.
أتمنى أن أكون قد وفقت
Well, I hope that my presentation was
بإعطاء
clear,
فكرة موجزة
just
عن
to give you an
التعليم
overview of
وعن الخطة
education
القطاعية.
regarding
شكرا
the
لكم على
educational
حسن
plan as well.
استماعكم.
Thank you for your kind
انتهى
شكرا
العرض.
جزيلا
attention.
دكتور. شكرا جزيلا دكتور.
Thank
كفيل
you,
دكتور
Doctor.
رغم انه العرض اخذ اكثر من الوقت
Despite the fact that the presentation has taken a lot of time.
هو نعم لكن قلنا نوضع المشاهد والقف الجلسة عن الشيء العام الموجود عن تعليم اليمن بشكل عام.
Yes, in fact, this was about the education in Yemen in general. You have provided us with the plan and the global plan for the development of education during the previous years and what we are longing for in the upcoming years through strategic objectives for the full access, for the improvement of education, for the sustainable funding. You have shed light on the priorities of the reform in light of the current challenges. Thank you so much, Dr. Aissam and Dr. Rasha. I don't know whether we can move to the questions or we move it to the second presentation.
Is the presentation shown on the screen? Assalamu alaikum.
نعم تشرفت يعني بالحضور هذه
It is an honor to participate to this webinar.
يمكن لأول مرة ندخل في
It is the first time maybe that we participate in a webinar with a lot of interested attendees, including our team from the Ministry of Education. I wanted to tackle the education management information system, the structure of the system from scratch. Can you hear me?
نعم
Can you still hear me? Yes, we can still hear you.
نعم ما زال مستمر أستاذ ياسر.
Yes, we can still hear you.
نعم أعتذر. تعلمون أن منذ العام 2015
You know that since 2015 and everything that happened in Yemen led to legal government and rebels on the other side. The legal government with its Ministry of Education, unfortunately I cannot hear him anymore. We cannot hear Mr. Yasser anymore.
يا نسرين
الصوت أيوة الآن رجعت.
ألو
الآن رجعت تمام.
Now he's back.
الانقطاع مستمر هل من عندي أو من نعم
لا.
نعم الانقطاع مستمر هل من عندي ولا تقنيا؟
لا بيكون بسبب ضعف النت عندك.
I think that your coverage is quite low. You may continue, and in case we have any problem, I will notify you.
تسمعني الآن؟
Can you hear me now?
بالنسبة لي حتى إذا انقطع أو شيء فنسرين أيضا هي عبارة عن عضو.
In case I lost the connection, Nisreen is a member of the MS committee, so she can continue on my behalf. We have said during the presentation, or the title of the presentation, is the structure from scratch. In 2017, there was a need to have data and information. Unfortunately, we lost the speaker again.
أستاذ ياسر.
Nasreen, can we proceed with a different presentation until Dr. Yasser join again?
ممكن نشغل عرض
بالضبط ممكن.
آخر؟
ننتقل الآن للدكتور عبد الباقي رئيس شعبة الإحصاء
Dr. عبد الباقي is Statistic Department President
ومركز البحوث.
in the Research Center.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليكم.
عبد الباقي الكمالي مركز البحوث والتطوير التربوي رئيس شعبة الإحصاء ومعالجة
So
البيانات.
I am the head of the Statistics Department. First of all, I would like to say that I am very proud to participate in that webinar encompassing a lot of experts. I would like to thank Ms. Nisreen for the coordination among us all.
في البداية أنا قدمت عرض مقتضب حول إنجازات مركز البحوث والتطوير التربوي.
I would like to give you an idea related to our department. So the inception, the vision of the research center, it was incepted in Aden in 1970 and in Sana'a in 1982. Both were there was a fusion between those two, and the name given to the center was the research center. The center is a local institution specialized in the issues of research and education evaluation, as well as the development of education policies. It is headed by the Minister of Education. The vision of the center, of the research center, so to develop the efficiency of the education system in Yemen in order to provide fair educational services and services of quality.
دكتورة رشا ممكن شير لملف الدكتور عبد الباقي؟
أنا عاملة شير، أنتم مش شايفينه؟
I'm sharing the screen actually. Aren't you seeing it? I can see it in front of me. I can see it in front of me.
العرض شوفوا الآن الجميع.
احنا الرسالة دلوقتي مش كده؟ هل ظهر
We're on the slide related to the mission now. Can you see it, everyone? Yes.
طبعا هذا العرض هو مختصر حول أعمال المركز.
So this is a presentation, a summary related to what the research center is doing. We are developing a coordination with local and international institutions, building policies, educational policies and decision making, planning the policies and the research, and preparing the curriculum and evaluating them. The objectives of the center to plan and implement research, education research, prepare curriculums and evaluate curriculums and books. Based on that, policies are prepared in coordination with the different stakeholders, coordinate with the relevant stakeholders in order to conduct education research, helping to build the needs or to fulfill the needs of the individuals. And the center as well is organizing and developing coordination with institutions, institutes, centers, educational centers, in order to exchange information and coordinate with different relevant stakeholders. The most important studies conducted by the center during the past few years, and mainly from 2022 till 2025, the study related to the evaluation of the capacities of the teacher, then the evaluation of the performance of the students in the grade 3, 4, and 5, and then the evaluation of the performance of reading and numeracy of the teachers in the of the students in the grade 2 and 3. as well another evaluation for the literacy and numeracy for the students of the grades 4, 5, and 6. And that from the basic or the primary education, and as well the compensation education being provided. So that was the main study conducted by our center. So the ASER project, the objective of that project was to have a look on the gaps related to the education or in the field of education. We have conducted an anticipatory evaluation, and then many interventions were conducted by the Ministry of Education between the first year and the second year of the project, and it was in coordination with the Ministry of Education. And we have prepared the studies related to the training of the teacher and other trainings as well. The next slide. The evaluation of the situation of education, ASER. So it is an evaluation where we see or where we measure the skills of reading numeracy of the students, and it is encompassing 5 levels of reading and 5 levels of calculation or numeracy. And we can see the performance of the student, and if it is capable of recognizing the letters, then the words, then the sentences, and the fourth level, the story. So that is for the literacy or the reading skills. And then for the numeracy, recognize the numbers, and then the numbers from 0 till 9, then measurement of the skills of the student to know the numbers till 99, and then start calculating additions and subtractions, and then the division. So this evaluation is related to the objective, the methodology, the main results, and then the impact. And you can see in this slide all the detail of that. So we have started on this project for the students of grade 3 and 4, and trying to diagnose the levels of the students and establishing a score from 2 to 5. Maybe here it is not quite clear. You cannot see. I have some data that are not available. But the methodology used was to implement ASER and to measure the numeracy skills and reading skills. And we have found that students in grade 3, most of them are unable to read a story, and a big portion of them are unable to conduct additions, subtractions, and divisions. And the data helped to collect the data from the ministry and determine the needs and establish the needed programs during the period between the test and the post-test. So the objective of measuring the post-test after all the intervention, to see the impact of the project on the students after the intervention and the different projects that were conducted, remedy projects that were conducted. So the post-test was compared with the pre-test, and we have seen a great improvement in terms of calculation 35% and 25% in terms of reading for the targeted students.
الشريحة اللي بعدها.
Next slide.
تنفيذ الاختبار القبلي والاختبار البعدي مر بمراحل عديدة. ليش الكلام بالصيني؟
So we have had different stages. Why do I see it in Chinese? He's asking. Why do I see the screen in Chinese?
نعم نشوفه.
بين الأرقام بس الكتابة فعلا متلخبطة تقريبا.
Yes.
فرق فونت من جهاز لجهاز.
أيوة، فأنا بعطي نبذة مختصرة حول الموضوع. هذه الأرقام الموجودة أمامكم. طبعا أنا الآن يعني لو كنت عارف كنت بجهز العرض موجود معي. هذه الأرقام هي لمراحل تنفيذ جمع البيانات، يعني من بداية التهيئة والتحضير للمشروع. كان في الاختبار القبلي عدد
in fact, there's something wrong with the figures apparently.
43 موزعين على 4 محافظات و5 مديريات، محافظة تعز ومحافظة مارب ومحافظة.
So we have had different directorates that were covered, including Hadramaut. So the 5 directorates were targeted in Ta'az, also Muwasil, and in Hadramaut we have the Hadramaut al-Mukalla, and also we have the Mukalla city that was targeted. And in Abyan we have the directorate of Khanfar, and in the directorate or in the province of Ma'arib we have the directorate of Ma'arib al-Wadi. The number of the students was about 65,943 in the pretest, and in the post-test we've had 62,570. These stages, these figures that we have had before you are 2,200 students that have implemented the test, and they have developed the performance of the students in the pre-test, and we've had 2,086 that have passed the post-test. So we've had different stages of the pre and post-test that have gone through the same stages of preparation, and then afterwards the collection of data, and then after the collection of data, the data were filtered and then analyzed, and the report, the final report was published. The slide after that. These stages, while we've had statistics of the number of males and females, as said in the previous slide, the number of students were about 65,943, and the rate of females and males in the pre and post tests were approximately 50% of males and 49% of females. And the collection of data training has taken place in all of the directorates and in all of the schools that were divided based on the proximity of the schools. And then the collection of data was made in order to analyze and to formulate the report. The results of the pre and post tests. There was a comparison between the pre and post tests, and there were negative and positive issues and some proposals by the Center of Research. And in fact, the level of the reading in the pre-test was weak when it comes to reading the characters and the words. There was a big percentage of the students that have not overcome the first level. But then after the interventions by the Ministry of Education and Higher Education, and after the programs that have been implemented by the General Administration of the Compensatory Education, there was a great improvement in the sentences in the rates of students that have gotten to the higher levels, to the fourth and to the fifth levels. When it comes to math, there was a previous slide here. There was a difficulty in recognizing the numbers made of two characters and to make calculations. But in the post-test, there was an improvement in the simple mathematical formulas such as the multiplication, addition, subtraction, and also the students have shown high levels of achievement in math. Now, regarding the training tools, there were more than traditional training tools, such as there were digital training tools and also more interaction of students with some of the school material that was used. Also, teachers have intervened. There was a lack of training on the new curricula, but teachers have intervened in order to have more training. And this was through the indicators shown by the results of the pre and post test evaluations. Regarding the challenges, of course, there was some lack in the resources, and also there was a lack of infrastructure in some of the schools. The schools have benefited from the compensatory education. We noted that there are differences between the pre and post tests at the level of males and females. In fact, the achievement levels were predefined for the fourth and the fifth level, and the middle level, less than full achievement, was of third level. So a bit less than achievement. So we have level 2, level 3, and level 0. Of course, it is the well, we have had here the lesser differences, as you can see. Regarding the results of the pre and post tests, well, there were recommendations having extensive evaluations based on the results, also enhancing the systems of compensatory education. So strict standards were adopted in order to choose the teachers for the compensatory education, and also continuous follow-up on these teachers based on a specific system. Interventions have been developed in the field of education, and there was a guide that was prepared. And one of the recommendations also of the evaluation is to take care of the children with education difficulties or who suffer from a certain disability. And one of the recommendations was also to analyze the results and to benefit from these improvements and improve the role of the school principal as an instructor, and also providing support for the school principals and teachers. I would stop at this point. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank all the supporting parties, the World Bank, UNICEF, all of the partners. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Abdelbaki, for this presentation. You have analyzed well, I was trying to be brief, yes, and the time is very brief, so I know. I tried to summarize as much as possible. Thank you, Dr. Abdelbaki, for your valuable input. Thank you for having given us a full overview of the pre-post tests in reading and mathematics. Thank you for working on making of these efforts a success. I move to Dr. Al-Arif Al-Qutaibi. Could you please take 20 minutes because we don't have enough time. Dr. Arif, go ahead, please. Yes, of course. I'd like to thank you in this session, the Knowledge Café, KIX. I'd like to thank all of the organizers. Well, in the General Administration of Compensatory Education, as you may notice, we have decision number 23, This is a system that comes to complete the general education system, and this is a temporary phase during the emergency and during the wars and pandemic, and it provides for education opportunities for children who haven't gotten the opportunity to achieve education based on the 5 dimensions of education that the conceptual framework of the International Convention has tackled. And also we have a different processes. We have the preventive education process, remedial courses, and different other processes. I have a problem in seeing the presentations. The moderator is saying, Dr. Rasha, could you please share the presentation of Dr. Arif? Yes, it's clear now. Thank you. Thank you. So we have here most of the activities through the coordination between the different parties. We have a lot of activities and projects that were implemented in partnership with a lot of partners. Next slide, please. So the Yemenis are suffering from a lot of crises because of a lot of very complicated factors. We have a lot of students aged between 5 to 10 and no less than 7 million children out of school. And also we have, based on the national survey, the multi-sectoral survey of the Ministry of Planning, we have a lot of information that you can go back to. It includes a lot of interesting data related to childhood, whether we're talking about the children who are who have dropped out of school or who are still inside of the schools. What about our vision in the compensatory education? In fact, every child has the right of education and has the right to achieve quality education. And our aim is to achieve a number of objectives, such as having all of the school-age children inside of the schools by 2030. But of course, we are still lagging behind when it comes to this objective because of a lot of factors related to the Yemeni context and to the international context as a whole. Second, achieving complementarity and gender equality and full access to education, and also empowering all of the children to have the foundational educational skills to be full-fledged members of the societies and communities through the green education for a green economy, etc. And last but not least, founding a sound childhood through enhancing the comprehensive parent education. So next slide. There are policies and measures that go beyond, or in fact, that have been taken by the Yemeni government in order to fight the risk of a dropout, since it is an ethical commitment. So, in fact, the Yemeni government has ratified the Convention of UNESCO and the Statistical Center, and so, in fact, it was decided to enhance the different systems and develop the capacities at the central and local levels based on the 5 dimensions that I've talked about, and also improving the life skills and the livelihood skills in the compensatory education aspects. We have also the trainings and also the workshops for all of the teachers in the different provinces. We have targeted categories We've talked about the conceptual framework for the convention on fighting the dropout rates. Also, we have the pre-primary schools or kindergarten schools that have to be enhanced so that the children could have access to these centers in order to protect the children through also enhancing the positive parenthood education. We've clarified that children should have a safe life and not a miserable one. This is why we have fought failure first, and we have adopted the proverb of better prevent than find remedies later on. We have the children at risk of dropouts. Also, we have tried to work on this aspect as well. So I've just given kind of an overview of these 5 dimensions. Next slide. When it comes to the policies and the measures taken by the government, we have a reference framework for the community education, for the alternative education aspects, also benefiting from the Egyptian experience. And also carrying out a study for the dropped out children, having a guide for the school achievement, also having an executive guide as well for the compensatory education. So we've decided to have a field survey for the compensatory education in Yemen with the collaboration of the Educational Development Center, and also we have submitted a list and a submission related to the compensatory education and the second opportunity education. And I mean by that definitions, processes, standards, curricula, outcomes, inputs. And then we have launched also the national framework for the compensatory education in partnership with UNESCO, and then the executive guide, as I've said, for the field implementers. And so we've had given a background on the compensatory education, its processes and its objectives, and how it should be implemented through the education services and through also the protection services. And also we have the circular and the guiding principles on the protection of the children inside of the schools and on the integration of children and the students in schools. And also we've had the guide on the school achievement and how to integrate the children in the compensatory education in the general education schools. We have also full details on this in this guide. Also having a school on the dropped out children in collaboration with the Education Development Center, and also we have built the national strategy for the dropout children in 2020 to 2030, and this strategy has been mentioned by Dr. Sama As-Subahi as well. Now we move to another aspect. We're working on an initiative for a sound childhood and a secure childhood through positive education in Yemen, and currently we are working on the SLP or self-learning program. So this was regarding the policies and evidence. Now regarding the curricula, of course, the accelerated learning programs and the basic literacy programs and the self-learning programs have been developed, and also we have launched the compensatory education methodology as a full-fledged methodology, and also we have adopted as well kind of a comprehensive multi-sectoral methodology, including education, health sector, and many other sectors as well. Based on the study that was carried out in partnership with the research center and with the funding of UNICEF and with the support of the Japanese government, a lot of results have been shown, and also a lot of programs and activities have been implemented with our partners in education, be it at the international or local levels. There was a community education in collaboration with the Islamic Bank, one of the partners. Also, the self-learning program was implemented implemented with UNICEF and with the funding of the American Agency of Development, and also the accelerated learning program in its two aspects was also implemented, and there is a great number of partners who have been delved into these efforts, such as the ECO and the JICA, and there were international partners such as ITD, and also we've had the preventive education, and there was also the self-learning program in partnership with the educational TV channel, and the self-learning courses have been broadcasted live on TV. Also, we've had different activities related to emotional learning for the children. Also, when it comes to education of refugees and displaced and how they can access learning safely, there have been a lot of outputs out of these activities. And last but not least, we have a project that is considered as a success story, which is the education and learning, whereby 110 students have been targeted in the compensatory education. And you would have a detailed presentation here on some of the results in some of the provinces. The targeted categories, in fact, are children with a low level of reading, basics of reading, and math. So there was a placement test for them in collaboration with the research center. So all of this was aimed at achieving the sustainable development goal, or through the humanitarian assistance programs. So this was related here to education and learning. Different activities have been adopted. And one of the most important points in this regard is that the results here, well, I'm not going to delve into these results. You can see them on the screen so that I don't take much time. So here you can see all the results on the screen. You have them with clear figures. So the most important point in these programs is the impact of these activities, the activities of the compensatory education. Of course, we are working based on the evidence-based methodology in our interventions, and we are trying to measure the impact through the ACER test in collaboration with the Research and Development Center, and also we are working on expanding our interventions as much as possible. We are working on the after-conflict or post-conflict response as well. And there's another field that we find very convenient, which is the educational reform that is based on moving from the protection system, so the traditional protection system or the post-conflict response, to the development protection system that is a transformative process for the humanitarian work. So we have built an evidence-based response, and we've moved to a targeted funding in order to serve the Sustainable Development Goals. So we have worked with our partners in order to implement a national plan for humanitarian complementarity in our compensatory education, and also we've worked in collaboration with the Center of Research, and our aim is to implement extensive evaluations and assessments in order for us to counter the challenges that such children are being faced with, be it educational or non-educational challenges, and all of which would serve the interest of proof and evidence on the field. And this would help analyze these evidence and spot the gaps and the needs of the children, whether they are dropped out of school or whether they are at risk of dropout, or whether this is related to national data, or whether we're talking about the children who are not covered by the national data. So our aim is to guarantee the transparency in the flow of funding related to the compensatory education. We have to have smart indicators while using the artificial intelligence techniques. So in fact, we are going to put that into the hands of our partners so that we will be able to implement our plans while being focused on the political will either of the government or the Ministry of Education and Higher Education, and based on the will of our partners here, partners working in the compensatory education, whether at the international or local levels. Thank you so much. So you can check here for the different activities and some of the evidence, some of the policies that have been developed. Thank you so much to all of you.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور عارف.
Thank you so much, Dr.
كان
Arif.
قيم
It was a valuable
وصراحة
presentation,
تناولت العرض
and you have
الجهود المبذولة لتوفير فرص تعليم
talked
بديلة
about the
للأطفال
different
خارج
efforts to
الجنسة
provide alternative education
وكذلك
opportunities for the
فعلا
dropped
دعم
out
تعويض
children
والمنح
through the
يوميا
compensatory education,
بما
through the
يضمن
flexible
حق
curricula in
الأطفال
order to
للتعليم
guarantee
ويحد
the
معدلات
right of all
التسرب
to
والانقطاع
education
الدراسي
and
أشكرك
to
جدا.
limit the dropout rates. Thank you
ممكن
so much.
الآن شفت أني سؤال في الدردشة صراحة من
I've
الدكتور
seen a question in the chat box
يوسف
by Dr. Yusuf.
كان مسجل
He had
سؤال ممكن بس
written
عشان الوقت
his
نسأل
question,
الدكتور
so maybe we could ask this question to
عصام بحكم إن
Dr.
السؤال
Isam,
يخص الخطة.
since
هو
the
يسأل
question is
لماذا
related to the plan.
مرتبات
So
الموظفين
how come the salaries of the
والحوافز
employees
المعلمين لم تدرج ضمن الخطة؟
were
هل
not
دكتور عصام
included in the
يجاوب على
plan?
السؤال
Dr. Isam, can you please answer the
يوسف؟
question of
شكرا.
Dr. Yusuf? Thank you.
شكرا لكم، شكرا دكتور يوسف
Thank you
على
so
السؤال
much. Thank you, Dr.
الرائع
Yusuf,
هذا.
for this great question.
لكن هذه الخطة طبعا هي خطة وزارة
But in
التربية
fact, this
والتعليم.
plan is the plan of the Ministry of
وموضوع
Education.
الرواتب
And the
طبعا
issue of
تمويل
salaries, in
الخطة
fact, well, the funding of the
تمول من
plan
قبل
here, the plan
الشركاء
should be funded by
الدوليين.
the international
طبعا
partners.
لم تمول الخطة
And the plan
رواتب وإنما
did not
تمول
fund
أنشطة
salaries, but it funded activities.
وأنشطة وما يحسن العملية التعليمية
And what
بكافة
improves the
أمورها.
educational
موضوع
system in all of its
الراتب
aspects.
يخص
Now, the issue of
وزارة
salaries is
يعني
related
الحكومة ووزارة
to
التربية
the
والتعليم ووزارة
government, the Ministry
المالية.
of Education, and the
لكن
Ministry of Finance.
الحوافز
But in
لو
fact,
لم
if we are to
طبعا
talk
في الخطة
about
أخذناها
incentives,
بشكل عجالة وسرعة.
of course,
نعرف
I've
الأولوية
just
الرابعة
talked in brief
والأولوية
about the plan,
الخامسة
but in the
ذكرت
fourth and
حوافز
fifth
للمعلمين
priority, there were
بما
incentives given to
يقدر أو
the
بما يعدل
teachers with an
$50
equivalent of
ذكر أيضا من ضمنها السلع الغذائية. لا
We've
يعني
also
أن
talked about the
الحوافز
food
سقطت
packages.
وإنما
So it doesn't mean that
موضوع
there were no
الرواتب
more incentives, but
يصعب
rather that the issue
إدراجها في
of
الخطة
salaries cannot be
نظرا
included
لأن
into that plan
المنظمات
because
الدولية
of the fact
وكل
that international
الممولين
organizations and all of the funders
لا يمول هذا الجزء
cannot
البند بالذات.
fund this item
فهم
specifically.
يمولون
So
أنشطة
they fund
والخطة مذكور
just
فيها أنشطة
activities,
كثيرة
and inside of the
منها
plan there are a lot of
حوافز
activities,
للمعلمين
including
وفي
some
الأولوية
of the
الرابعة
incentives
والخامسة
for the
تم
teachers. And in
التعاقد
the
أيضا
fourth
مع
and fifth
معلمين
priority, also
وهؤلاء المتعاقدين سيصرف لهم حوافز
they will
لا
contract with
تسمى
the
رواتب
teachers,
وإنما
and there will
تسمى
be
حوافز،
incentives for the
وهذه
teachers. They are not
موجودة
called salaries,
ضمن
but rather
الأولوية
incentives. And
الرابعة
these are
والأولوية
inside of the
الخامسة
fourth priority and inside of the
برياضة
fifth
الأطفال والحوكمة
priority. And
فموجود
also
عقود للمعلمين
inside of the
والمعلمات
governance, there are contracts
وخاصة
for the female and male
لمعلمات
teachers,
الريف
especially for
وغيرها من
the
المعلمين
teachers
في
in the rural
الريف المدن،
areas and other teachers,
لكن
even those
حوافز
that
وليست
are in the
رواتب.
cities, but
شكرا.
just as incentives and not as salaries. Thank you.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور
Thank you
عصام.
so much, Dr. Isam.
دكتور يوسف كمان عنده أسئلة أخرى.
Dr.
ممكن
Yusuf
نشوف دكتور
has
يوسف.
other questions. Just let us check.
تفضل دكتور.
Yes, Doctor.
دكتور يوسف أنت رافع يدك.
Dr. Yusuf, you
أسئلة
have
أخرى
raised
غير
your hand. Do you
المرتبات؟
have any other
بداية
questions other
السلام
than the
الله
salaries?
عليكم وشكرا جزيلا.
Yes, hello.
السلام
Thank you.
وبركاته.
الشكر الجزيل تنظيم أو هذه
Thank you for
الندوة الرائعة
organizing this
التي
very
تناقش
important
وضع
seminar
التعليم في
that
الجمهورية اليمنية.
discusses the situation of
شكرا
education in Yemen.
للمقدمين وشكرا
I'd like to
لكل
thank the
الزملاء المنسقين.
speakers and all of the organizers.
مداخلتي أو
My
إشارتي
intervention
إلى ما هي
is about
المشكلات التي
the problems
ستواجهها
that
الوزارة في
the
تنفيذ
ministry is
الخطة
going to face
القطاعية
in the implementation of the sectoral
مخاضة
plan
لظل
especially
مستجدات
in light
جديدة
of latest
والمتعلقة بوضع
developments
المنظمات
related
الإنسانية
to the situation of the humanitarian
الداعمة
organizations
للتعليم في المحافظات
related to the
الأربع
education sector in the provinces that
حكومة
are under
صنعاء.
the control of the
هناك
government of Sinai.
أعتقد أنه
In fact,
65%
I
من
think
المشكلات
we have
التعليمية التي وردت في الخطة الصناعية هي
65%
تتعلق
of the problems are
بالمحافظات
related to the provinces
بحكومة
that are
صنعاء
under the control of the
و35%
government of Sinai, and
تتعلق بحكومة كفر.
35% are related to the
كيف
Eden
ستواكب
government.
وزارة
So how
التعليم
can
في
the Ministry
عدن
of
كونها
Education
المسؤولة
in Eden, since it
عن
is
قطاع التعليم في
responsible for
الجمهورية
the
اليمنية
sector
بشكل عام
of education
وتتضمن
in Yemen,
أكثر من جهة أو أكثر من سلطة
regardless of the
وأكثر
fact
من
that there are many
محافظة،
parties, many
كيف
authorities,
ستواجه
more than one
التحديات
province? How
التي
are they to
تتعلق بالتنفيذ
face the challenges
الخطة
related
في
to the
المحافظات
implementation of
التي
the
لا
plan
توجد
inside
فيها
of the provinces
منظمات
where there are
ومؤسسات
no
معنية
UN
بتنمية قطاع التعليم في
agencies
الجمهورية اليمنية؟
concerned with
شكرا جزيلا.
funding the educational sector in Yemen? Thank you. Yes, Dr. Isam, the floor is yours.
حياكم الله. هو سؤال صراحة يعني خطة القطاع التعليم لا تجيب عليها. فعلا هي قطاع التعليم
Well, in fact,
شاملة يعني
the education plan is comprehensive for the Republic of Yemen, from Nahra to Saada.
تحدي الخط
But
التحديات
there
التي
is a
يعرض لها
challenge,
التغذية
or
طبعا
there are
أكبر تحدي
challenges.
هو التمويل.
Well, the biggest challenge is
أما
the
فيما
funding
يخص
challenge. Now, regarding
موضوع ما تحت
the
سيطرة
issue
الانقلابيين
of
فهذا سؤال
whether they are
صراحة
under the control
متعلق
of the
بالجانب
organizers of the coup
الأمني
d'etat. Well,
والجانب
I think that this
السياسي.
is related to the
يصعب
security
علينا
issues and to the
نحن
political issues,
كأعضاء
and
في
it would be difficult
الرئاسة
for us as
أن
members
نرد
in
عليه
the
لأنه
sector plan to answer these
الحقيقة
issues, because
السياسيون
as a matter of fact, the
والجانب الأمني
politicians and the
يفرض
security level
أمور
is imposing
صعب أن نحددها هنا في
some
هذا اللقاء.
issues that it would be difficult for us to define in this encounter. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Isam.
أو الدكتور بشير.
So another question
دكتور
from
بشير يسأل.
Dr. Bashir. Go ahead.
المايك من فضلك. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you so much.
جميعا شكرا على هذه المداخلة.
Greetings to you all. Thank you for this very important intervention. And I am very sorry for coming late. Today was the second day in the UNESCO Regional Center in Saudi Arabia ceremony to highlight the importance of quality education. A question was asked from a delegate from Yemen but wasn't answered, and I would like to ask it to Dr. Hussam, and I apologize again for not being there since the beginning. Is there an importance given or an interest when talking about the remedial education? Is there an interest to train the teachers? Are you conducting trainings for teachers in Yemen despite the crisis and the difficult conditions that Yemen is facing? Do you have any plans to train the teachers, knowing that there was a plan before the crisis, a plan for the TOT? So currently, do you have any plan to train the teachers, and how will that go based on the new criteria and conditions? So from a professional standpoint, are you conducting any professional trainings? Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Bashir. I think that the plan is in the strategy number 5 for education and remedial education. But the most important thing is related to implementation. And in terms of implementing the TOT for the remedial education, Dr. Adel can answer you better. Thank you for the question.
هي الأساس المستدام لجميع الأنشطة التي يمولها جميع الشركاء.
We are coordinating with the different partners in that regard. And in terms of the continuous training, we are trying to shed light on the behaviors, the human behavior, and the behaviors of the teachers. We have clear policies related to remedial education concerning the building of skills and the personal development of the teacher. The personal development is conducted through technology. In order to shake the pyramid and focus on the behavioral parts and the mentalities related to remedial education and the impact of education, and then work on the skills. So the teacher or the facilitator can have all the needed knowledge, be it through working on the content previous to the training, or having access to the content via internet online. So it is very important to improve the professionalism of the teacher in the field of remedial education as the football player. So it is very important that some skills are built and that the teacher trains in order to reach professionalism, and that through personal development. So it is very important to keep this analogy in mind between the teacher and the football player, mainly because the teacher is the one who creates the change and whom will have the greatest impact on the upcoming generations. So, of course, we are training the colleagues who are working in emergency settings as well, and we are trying as well to focus on education and peace. I hope that we go beyond the traditional response, especially because we are quite late, we are way behind. So it is very important to work on the behaviors, to shake the pyramid, focus on the behavioral objectives, and try to convince the teacher of the importance of the project, so that he can continue on working as a creator of change. Thank you so much.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور عارف.
Thank you, Dr. Arif.
ممكن أن ننقل المايك للدكتورة
If
رشا.
there is no further questions, I'll give the floor to Dr. Rasha. Dr. Rasha, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for the working team. The cafe today is quite different, full of hope, and the initiatives as well as the plan as showcased is comprehensive, flexible, responsive to the specificities of Yemen. It is quite aware of the situation in Yemen, taking into account the aspirations of youth and the children in Yemen. I would like to thank you very much for sharing this applied research and all the research and studies conducted in terms of numeracy and literacy. The presentations were all very professional with qualitative data, I'm very happy and I am very surprised of the number and the quantity of data and information that you have. I wish you all the best, and I am very happy that our cafe today was dedicated to Yemen, to the beloved Yemen, and hopefully we will meet you very soon in the Samena Cafe with a new country, and hopefully it will be a very pleasant surprise. Thank you so much. Thank you, and see you very, very soon. Thank you so much.